It is Dungeon Meshi Day. It's a good day of the week because this anime has rapidly rocketed to like first in contention for anime of the year for me, just simply because of the goddamn good craft. Holy shit. Episode 3 made me go kind of nuts. Probably episode 4 won't, I say, hoping that it'll prove me wrong. But goddamn, just the craft of animation on display here. Ooh, very, very, very happy about that. But you may notice that if you've watched some of the other reaction videos, watch-along videos, that things look a little bit different right now. There's a big black box behind my avatar here, and you might wonder what the hell is that about. Well, one of the pieces of feedback I've gotten on these things, which I think is a good piece, like a true, honest, genuinely very good piece of feedback, is that it's a little bit hard to follow what the hell I'm talking about sometimes, because even though we're trying to stay in sync with one another, sometimes I'll pause on something and other people just can't tell what the hell I'm pausing on. And like I'm talking about blabbering on about something, and like I can't be sure that they have the same thing on screen that I do, or that we're completely in sync, even with the timer on screen, stuff like that. And it would be nice if there was something on screen, maybe with some subtitles on it, to sort of show what it is that I'm reacting to and show what it is that I'm talking about. The problem is I can't put stuff on screen because of lawyers who will kill me. If I put like, and I've tried a million different solutions. I tried putting just the subtitles bit of the episode on screen, right? I thought like, just the subtitles. They can't possibly. Yes, it detected that. Like the fucking algorithm detected that and hit me with like a copyright block. So that one doesn't work. Then I tried recording at like 1 frame every 10 seconds, right? Like I tried a few different, like I tried 1 frame every 3 seconds, 1 frame every 4 seconds, 1 frame every 5 seconds, and the 3 and the 4 frames per second, I tried to record like with the anime episode playing in the background here, and then at a really low frame rate, and the 3 and the 4 frames per second, those both got caught, or 1 frame per 3 and 4 seconds, both got caught by the content algorithm. The one that was 1 frame every 5 seconds didn't get caught, but I have a sneaking suspicion that it eventually will, and it would be very vulnerable to manual copyright claims as well, because I am technically showing the whole episode on screen, which is like that is not fair use. That is a form of copyright infringement, unfortunately. I mean, I'd have to fight it in court to prove otherwise, and I don't want to do that. And I don't want to edit these things either, because that's a whole fuck ton of extra work on my own shoulders, and that's kind of defeating the point of this channel, which is that I can just kind of sit down, record some stuff, react to some anime, have a good time, and not have to worry about like polishing shit up afterwards. I can just like record it and put it online, not worry about it. It's supposed to be relaxing for me, right? So what the hell do I do? Well, what if, wouldn't it be clever if every time I press the space bar in order to stop the episode, that the episode flashed up on screen so you could see whatever frame it was that I had frozen on? Wouldn't that be clever? And wouldn't it also be clever if every time I press the spacebar to play the episode, it goes away automatically without playing back any video at all from the thing I'm playing, just showing you screenshots from it some automatically? Yes, it would. And so I figured out how to set up some hotkeys so that my spacebar will swap from that black box over to the key visual for the anime, and then when I press spacebar again, it shows you what I'm looking at on screen. I'm genuinely kind of pleased with myself for this one. Not that it was complicated, not that it was difficult. It was actually very easy to set up, but it took me a little while to think through my human brain to figure out that this is how we're gonna do it. So that's cool. But yeah, like that's how we're gonna do it. Let me know in the comments if this works for you. I think it should. It does. It's cool. I like it. I'm clever. I'm smart. Give me adulation and subscriber counts and stuff like that. I am genuinely pleased with myself. But if you've not been along to one of these watch-alongs before, then there's a timer in the top left of the screen that shows you where I am in the episode. Because this is a Netflix show, and Netflix likes to count down, so does this timer. And it'll help you synchronize your playback with where I am. Because I can't show you the episode on screen, but we can press play at the same time, and we can press pause at the same time. So as we start the episode, I'm going to say 3, 2, 1, play, and we're both going to press play, and then we're going to be in sync, and then every once in a while I'll have something to say. I'll have some stuff I want to talk about that I can't just sort of say while the episode is playing, and then I'll say 3, 2, 1, pause. And we will pause at the same time. And then once I'm done saying the thing I want to say, 3, 2, 1, unpause. And in that way, we will stay more or less in sync using the timer, using the visual that's on screen for you. And we get we get to watch the episode together, essentially. You're watching the episode sat next to me on the couch. I'm not paying attention to anything you're saying because I can't hear you, but I am talking out loud about all of the cool things that I am excited about for this particular anime episode. That's how this works, and hopefully you're gonna have a good time. I would like you to. So yeah, with that out of the way, let's actually watch the episode. 3, 2, 1, play. I'm sort of 5 out of 10 on the opening song, if I'm quite honest. Like, it's not my kind of pop. But the visuals are very well calculated to sort of match its vibes, like that quiet, like the heartbeat thing of the sound, and like it's sort of just, you get these calm scenes, and then once we come up to the chorus, that's when she looks up. Right, and that's when we sort of jump into some scenes that are a little bit more active, with characters like reaching for things, running for things, jumping for things, doing stuff. So like it's a very well produced opening from like a directorial perspective. Just not my kind of music, unfortunately. At some point, I'm going to have to watch one of these episodes with the dub, because I hear good things about it. Man, even in the intro, the little eating scene they have together, just like look at Marcel versus Chilchok versus like just the way they act in that little brief moment. So good. Okay. Three, 2, 1, pause. Okay. So Golems. I just want to bring this up. One thing about Golems is that they are a feature of Hebrew mythology, right? And they form the basis of like so many fantasy creatures that we sort of think about as like just, oh, this is generic fantasy stuff, but it is actually very specifically a Hebrew myth where the golem is a protector of Hebrew communities, right? Like a protector of a persecuted community who is like brought into being in times of great danger in order to protect the community from some kind of, like, usually from a pogrom, right? Like that's often why the golem is eventually summoned. And there is this, sometimes in the golem tales, this morality thing of like, yeah, only keep them around for as long as they need them, because if you keep the golem around for too long, it starts causing trouble. Like it starts sort of acting out of turn or acting out of bounds. And that sort of acts as an interesting little parallel of like the creation of humanity, right? Like that God creates humanity to be these loyal servants. And then we kind of go, hey, what if eat the apple though? And then we sort of rebel against our creator in a little way. Like this, what I'm saying is there's a lot of really interesting stuff about golems as fantasy creatures beyond just, oh, these are things that show up in fantasy stories. They are like, there's some really interesting mythology about them. I just want people to know that so they can go look for it because it's cool. Anyway, 3, 2, 1, unpause. Tasteful bit of 3D on the door. The little straw hat. Okay. Okay, so this episode so far feels noticeably lower budget than the others. Like, not to the point that it's bad or anything, just much closer to standard seasonal anime, you know? The straw hat on his helmet is good, though. It's amazing how such a little thing can change, like, how his character design reads. Straw hat means gardener. But yeah, like I talked about last episode, like a show being board driven and like driven by a particular lead animator. The characters are very differently on model in this episode than they are in episode 3. To be fair, this episode doesn't need higher level animation yet. Okay, 3, 2, 1, pause. So, the things like, again, what he buried inside the golems seemed to be chems, right? Like, seemed to be little cylinders or little sort of vaguely person-shaped things with writing on them, which again, like, going back to like, the Hebrew mythology that they're drawn from, golems are activated by having the name of God written upon their foreheads, right? Like the specific letters of the name of God, which is like, again, not an expert in Hebrew mythology and in Judaism, but like there is like a great power in the name of God in Hebrew mythology. Like the name itself, the writing of the name itself, the letters of the name itself, great significance. And like to the point where a rabbi writing the name of God on like on the head of a clay sculpture can breathe life into them in the same way that God can breathe life into things. Which is like just it's a really cool mythology. I just want people to be interested in it. Anyway, 3, 2, 1, unpause. Yeah, decidedly more chill episode. Again, this show makes me hungry. Yeah, what sunlight are they getting, actually, those vegetables? Oh, I see. I mean, that's just normal. Mm. Theme. 3, 2, 1, pause. Okay, so theme, right? Theme. And this is the thing, like we've talked about how this is present in the story already. This idea of being part of a cycle, part of an ecosystem. In the same way that like adventurers are so casual about death because they've died many times and they've been revived many times. They sort of spawn in a graveyard, they literally go through a life cycle where they delve into the dungeon, they die, they're brought back to life, they return to the surface. Right? Like that's something that's very, very present in Dungeon Meshi so far, and one assumes will continue to be. It's a really interesting, like, it's a very interesting take, right, on the sort of dungeon crawling fantasy, that it's not so much like this act of conquest, right? Like, we are conquering the dungeon. We are, like, clearing out all the monsters and stealing all the treasures, but rather that, like, by going through this cycle, you're becoming, like, part of an ongoing system of things, right, that maintain themselves and that reciprocate upon themselves, that, like, you give and you get back, like, to each according to their need, from each according to their ability, kind of thing. It's a really interesting take on the concept of, like, the adventuring party that dungeon crawls, right? Like very different from basically anything else I've ever seen. I quite like it. Anyway, 3, 2, 1, unpause. Oops. I love that Lyos just, like, they have they have cabbages and shit just stuck on them. Again, good use of character design, like good use of the character itself. Food is surely more valuable in a dungeon. Hey, dickhead! Oh. Oh, well, okay. Well, that was a lot of murder. Interesting orc designs. Shit, I feel like that sometimes. Ooh, some good animation on him there. Oh, hang on. Hang on. 3, 2, 1, pause. Is it, are we doing like a visual metaphor? Because like, are we doing a visual metaphor thing of like dough is something that you have to knead it together forcefully? Like it's, oh, this is coherence through conflict, like through friction and like being mixed up kind of thing. Like, is that what we're doing? Is that what we're doing? Are we doing that right now? Because that would be very clever. I would like that. Okay. 3, 2, 1, unpause. They go to each of their corners because it's a wrestling match kind of thing. Yeah. Oh, anime bread is just so good. Bonk. Owned. Owned by a child. Owned. Oh shit! One of the ladies had they have like the little thing around the neck, like almost like a beard. That's cool. Three, two, one. Pause. Okay, not quite the frame I necessarily wanted to pause on, but the character design of the orcs is interesting for a couple of reasons. Like there's many different versions of like what an orc looks like in fantasy. I don't think I've seen a furry one that I can remember. I'm sure there are some. Like I'm sure it's not like Dungeon Meshi invented this, but especially combined with the way that the guy's face is rendered and the way that the show sort of frames his physicality, that's a slightly horny design. Like not in like an obvious fan service kind of way, but it's a little bit yeah, like it's a little bara, right? Like it has a little bit of that aesthetic to it, like that particular aesthetic of the burly man kind of thing. Especially with the inclusion of body hair, which I think is interesting. Interesting. Anyway, 3, 2, 1, unpause. Three, two, one, pause. There. That's a better shot of it. A bit horny, like a little bit on the, like for the people who are into that kind of, it seems like a slightly horny, like especially with like the big hairy chest, like extra hairy tuft of fur on the center of the chest and all. It's like, okay, like what I'm thinking about is like, am I meant to read this character design as fan service, right? Like, is it coincidental? It can be sometimes, but knowing what I know about this series, I don't think it. I think we're seeing a little bit of the monster fuckery sort of peeking out in the character design here. Also, those orc ladies, good character design. Like one thing that annoys me a lot about female character design in anime a lot of the time is that there is this inbuilt default extreme sexual dimorphism, right? Like this thing of like if there is a girl, is she's skinny, very super skinny, no visible muscle, and like button nose, giant eyes. Like that's just like that's the baseline from which all character design kind of proceeds a lot of the time, right? And this is something like we know this in video games, like this thing of like the male monster in a video game. Oh yeah, that's the one that looks like a fucking monster, and then the female version of the monster is a hot lady in a bikini with different colored skin than a normal lady and like maybe a tail or whatever, right? And that character design tendency is like something that exists really strongly in fucking isekai, for example, where the character design of sort of mainstream middle of the road anime doesn't know how to make a female character appealing outside of making her either cute or sexy, right? But what I quite like about these orc ladies is that they are appealing. Like, they have a lot of character appeal. And appeal is not the same as being sexy or attractive. Appeal is just like the sort of ineffable visual quality of being nice to look at as a character design, right? And so, like, plenty of things can have appeal that are like horror monsters can have appeal. Just because like they're pleasant, they have a pleasant quality to look at. They're like characters and you look at it, oh shit, that's cool. That feels good to look at. And that's something I like about the orc ladies here, is that there is it walks that line of it's not trying to make them ugly. Right? Like, it's not doing the thing of because they are orc ladies, therefore they are hideous, right? It's not trying to make them unappealing, it's trying to present them as these are characters who exist and like who have like a pleasant proportionality to the way that they're presented. And I like that. That's, again, it's this thing of craft, right? Because I can easily imagine a fucking isekai anime where the orc men look more or less exactly the same, but then all the orc ladies are like skinny waifu characters. I have seen that before, and it annoys me, and it's just nice to not see that in Dungeon Meshi, I think. 3, 2, 1, unpause. Okay, so a decidedly lower stakes episode, this one. Because this is the thing I was wondering about. Like, the first 3 episodes, the quality scale of just the craft on display in those episodes was so fucking high. And I was like, I did feel like this can't possibly be the whole season, right? Like, at some point, there has to be an episode where they dump the budget a little bit. And this seems to be that one, right? Like, this is an episode where all of the animation is much more in line with the budget of, like, what you would consider a normal seasonal anime budget. And it's a well-chosen one. Like, it's a good choice to go with this episode for that, because it's so low stakes. There aren't really any big action sequences like there was, like, the previous fight with all the living armors. That sequence gained so much from having so much invested into the animation of it, right? Like, to having the living armors rendered with such an interesting physicality, which I rambled on about in the previous one. This one, I think, is like, okay, there aren't any really complicated combat sequences. It's mostly dialogue driven. Like, it's mostly characters sort of sitting around talking to each other. We can sort of handle that with like a lot of static shots that we sort of pan over, which is like the classic anime thing of showing time passing or an activity happening without actually animating the characters. Like a whole bunch of shot reverse shot of like, here's a character's face talking, here's another character's face talking kind of thing. And then every once in a while, like little bits inside of it still. Little bits of animation inside of it still sort of showed like a real nice quality of motion and movement. I'm thinking in particular of the bread baking scenes. Like a bunch of care and attention was paid to like the kneading of the dough that was happening. Like, especially here, this was a shot I'm looking for. Senshi sitting there, like, doing that thing. Like, some really nice, complex animation happening with his arm, like, the way that he's, like, picking up the dough. That's very well observed, right? Like, so I'm not saying that the animation that was there is lower quality, just that the animation there is lower again, how the hell would I describe it? Lower effort? No. Just that fewer resources were sunk into it. But as far as I could tell, like the same baseline level of care and quality was still there from the animators, right? In making sure that that this all looked good in motion. Like Marcille also had a few, like when she was having her fight, like this specific shot, there was some good animation made on like the way that she was like pointing the accusing finger and like whipping it around. Like just good baseline craft, like still baseline craft that I would say is better than a lot of seasonal anime that I've seen. And this is one thing that I find fascinating about watching animes. Like it's like trying to parse out that production decision-making process that they have, right? Like they are trying to figure out, like, okay, how is this production trying to prioritize its resources? How is this production trying to, where is it putting its budget, right? What is it trying to show? Because there was an anime a couple of seasons ago or whatever, which like had a shot in the first episode of like just a guy, like the main boring ass generic protag kun walking up a set of stairs, and they had this incredibly complicated 3D animated like camera swooping motion following him around with this fisheye lens effect, like so like his hand was distorting into the perspective, like this incredibly technically complicated shot that just meant nothing. Right? It's just a fucking guy walking upstairs. Like, it's a shot that doesn't say anything. It doesn't do anything. It doesn't communicate any feeling. It doesn't add anything to what's going on, because all that's actually happening in terms of action in the scene is man walk upstairs, right? Which is an example of really bad direction and really bad allocation of resources, where a smarter show, like, for example, Dungeon Meshi, is like, okay, we have in this episode 3, we have this fight scene with a whole bunch of living armors where the characters like fighting, and like one of our characters has like a confrontation with a mini boss, essentially, where it's like he figures out how to beat this mini boss by paying attention to its body language, right? And so the decision is made there on like the level presumably of the directors, like, okay, this is where we need extra animation muscle, right? Like if we have our main character having a fight with a mini boss and he's figuring out how to read the boss's body language in order to figure out how to defeat it, this is where we need to spend some extra time and some extra resources on making this boss animate well, so that the audience gets that. At the cost of, here's an episode where they run into some orcs, they have some conversations back and forth, we do a little bit of world building about like which flavor of fantasy racism we have in this world, which is a thing that like, I mean, I'm personally kind of tired of fantasy racism as like a plot point, in part because in the real world, racism and like this kind of cultural bias is not rational. It is not based on rational things, right? But in fantasy worlds, and this is something like, this is not unique to Dungeon Meshi, this is like a general feature of fantasy, like Dungeons & Dragons does this. They'll often do this thing of like, well, the orcs supported the rise of the Dark Lord 5,000 years ago, and so therefore, like, they have this, in the process of world building, in the process of inventing the backstory for the world, they kind of go, okay, so the fantasy races have this tension, right? Like they have this racial animus towards each other because of X, Y, and Z, because of these events that happened in history, because of such and such, right? Which is giving that kind of animus like entirely too much credit. Like most people who have this kind of animus towards each other, right? Like who have this like irrational, bigoted, like hostility towards other people, they don't rationalize it. Like unless you really push them, unless you confront them about it, they just have a disgust response, and then they allow that to drive their actions. So it's like, and in fantasy, like the risk you run is accidentally presenting fantasy, like presenting this kind of bigotry as though it has a rational basis, when it in in reality, it really doesn't. Like, this kind of bigotry does not emerge from any kind of a rational, reasonable thinking place. It doesn't arrive from an actual, like, assessment of history. It arrives from disgust. It arrives from, like, I'm the in-group, you are the out-group, so fuck you because of that. Right, like that's as far as that kind of bigotry goes. And I think it's a trope I'm kind of tired of in fantasy. This thing of like, yes, like the orcs have animus and hostility towards the humans because of the long history of which, like, because in reality that's generally not how it works. In reality, when someone has like a racial bias towards someone else, they just hate them. Like, they just feel disgust or disdain or superiority or fear or suspicion, and it's not something that's like grounded in any kind of rationality, right? And the grievances have a tendency to be completely fucking made up also, right? Like, bigots don't need real grievances. They don't need it for anything real to have actually happened. They'll just make some shit up, right? Which they do all the fucking time. So yeah, it's a trope that I'm like, not charmed by it. I'm tired of it because it, especially when it comes to world building a world, like a fantasy world with like a complex, rich history, it sort of just obscures the more interesting idea of actually exploring, hey, this irrational hatred, right? Like, what about exploring that instead of trying to make it an opportunity to world build about the history of the world, right? Like, yeah. But anyway, God, I am so fucking ADHD brain today. You don't even know how many things I have. I had a glass of water on my desk, drank it. I was like, I should get some more water. And then the moment I thought, hey, I should get some more water, I also thought, oh shit, I have this plate that is in my room. I need to go and take that to the dishwasher. So I took the plate to the dishwasher. And then I was in the kitchen. I was like, shit, I'm kind of thirsty. I should get some water. Oh fuck, my glass is back in the room, right? So I go back into the room, and then I go back into the room, and it's like, wait, hang on. Why was I in the kitchen? I don't remember. I guess just gonna sit down, gonna open up like the thing I was working on, and then it's like, oh fuck, I'm kind of the fucking water glass. Like, I did that, right? Like that whole thing. So I'm a little scatterbrained. I'm a little all over the place. But yeah, lower stakes episode of Dungeon Meshi. Hopefully they're saving up the budget, like saving up the resources for something more impactful down the line, right? And I'm curious to see what that is. These illustrations at the end still so fucking S tier. Where are the barmaids? There. I love these two character designs so much. Like, they're just good. They're like the way that like you have this. I guess she's a dwarf lady or whatever. Like where like this very stocky build, and then you have this human character where like there's this point being made of giving her this very long neck, like, which does instant dynamic between the two, right? Like, instantly, oh shit, those are personalities now. Those aren't just like generic NPC in whatever place. These are people, right? Like, these are people, like, the body language, the way they're presented, the contrast between the two of them, you sense that, oh shit, they have a dynamic, right? There's a thing, but like, there's more between these two characters than just simply being background NPCs in a random illustration. Like, these guys are random background NPCs, right? Like, these guys are random background illustrations where it's just like dudes. I guess she's a halfling. Just like dudes sort of sitting around, like they're unique from one another, but they're not interesting. These two are interesting. I just like that. I like that bit of character design a lot, and I like these illustrations in general. I just love, like, the fucking lighting in this one. And the way it, like, emphasizes Marcial's expression. And the little gesture with the hands. Like, a gesture like that, it's actually deceptively hard to draw. Like that open, spread-fingered, like... And then this fucking thing had, like, that open tension, that it's deceptively difficult. I'm glad I can put things on screen now to actually talk about when I'm talking about them. And the little detail, and I don't know if that's the detail, but I like that the base of this table seems to be a wagon wheel. And like Laios is resting his feet on top of the base of the table. Is like, it's little things about like the gesture about how a character sits, right? Compare and contrast that with how Marcellus is sitting, for example, like that she's like all the way front, like all the way out on her seat with like the legs tucked back and like this tension with like the toes pointed inwards towards one another a little bit. Compare that gesture to Laios like leaning back, like hands calmly in his lap, like legs out to the side, kind of crossed over, just like, and you can tell so much about like its personality. There's personality in them. I've missed that in anime. I really have. Like so many other anime, like again seasonal anime, like most of it is mid by the nature of averages. But the ways characters sit, the way characters like their posture, the way they're posed, the way they do things, like so much of it is just stock. So much of it is just, this character's doing the pose that a schoolgirl does when she's insecure about her feelings or whatever, right? So then, like, shoulders up and, like, maybe a hand in front of her chest and, like, over her mouth or what, like, these stock poses that I've seen a million times that don't feel specific to a person. They just feel specific to an archetype because that's all the character is. Tired of that. Want more of this is my point, is what I'm trying to get at. Anyway, I'm gonna stop now because I need to stop. Unmedicated ADHD. Thanks for watching.